This is Twit.
Oh, crap. Apple just bought Beats.
Did they?
Did they?
They did. $3 billion, not 3.2.
It's just crossing the wire now.
Wow. Couldn't they have Couldn't they have done this during MacBreak Weekly?
I was wrong. This is from Peter Kafka, who works at Recode. And there's the link to the Recode article. Is there an Apple press release? That's what we really want to know.
Financial Times also has the story.
Yeah, they were the ones who broke it. Is there any confirmation from Apple, Chad? Do you see anything there?
Actually, the Financial Times broke the story, and yeah, it's I really don't know.
Here's The Verge says Apple has confirmed it, but I want to see Apple's confirmation. Yeah, there you go. The thing that Beats provides us is a head start, says Tim Cook. We could build about anything that you could dream of, but that's not the question, he said in an interview. The thing Beats provide us is a head start, and it provides us with incredible people, kindred spirits. Apple says it will keep the Beats hardware brand intact, as well as the Beats music streaming service. It also says Beats Electronics co-founders Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre will join the company as full-time employees. Wow, I would have never guessed that. In fact, I just didn't believe it at all, but apparently it is true. And Apple is confirming. What was that article from, Chad? Was that The Verge?
That was Recode.
That was Recode. I don't see it on Recode's front page. I hope we're not being...
Here's the full press release.
I hope we're not being punked.
No, well, I mean, maybe. There it is.
All right. I want to see this on the Apple site before I'll submit, before I'll give up.
You know, the thing is, we've talked about this story for, a couple weeks now, at least 2.5 weeks?
Yeah.
3 weeks? And there isn't much more to say other than it appears that the price is $3 billion rather than $3.2 billion.
And that's actually what the leak yesterday, the day before said, is it's a little less than they said.
Apple probably got a little bit, got a cheaper price because of the video, the Tyrese video.
Actually, the story was that because Apple found out that there were only 110,000 subscribers to the Beats Music streaming service, which is very small compared to, say, the 10 million of Spotify.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. You know, one of the things, if you search for Apple Buys Beats, you find the April Fool's joke in the Left Set's letter, which is a great letter for people who follow the music industry. Apple Buys Beats, but that was apparently a joke. This is not a joke, at least as far as we can tell. Apple has bought Beats.
There's been a lot of that.
I'm surprised. I really am surprised. And now it made sense that they would confirm this before WWDC so that they can bring Dre up on stage. Here's the press release from the Apple website. Apple to acquire Beats Music and Beats Electronics. Total of $3 billion, consisting of a purchase price of approximately $2.6 billion and approximately $400 million that will vest over time. Those are the handcuffs that keep Dre and Iovine in the employ of Apple. Jimmy Iovine said, "I've always known in my heart that Beats belonged with Apple. The idea when we started the company was inspired by Apple's unmatched ability to marry culture and technology. Apple's deep commitment to music fans, artists, songwriters in the music industry is something special." Wow, that's a shocker. I really didn't believe it. Music is, Eddie Q, music is such an important part of Apple's DNA and always will be. The addition of Beats will make our music lineup even better, from free streaming with iTunes Radio, which already existed, to a world-class subscription service in Beats, and, of course, buying music from the iTunes Store, as customers have loved to do for years. And subject to regulatory approvals, Apple expects to close in fiscal Q4, which is the next quarter calendar year. That would be sometime in the third quarter calendar year.
Walter Isaacson, who's Steve Jobs' biographer, predicted that
he said it would happen.
Jimmy Iovine would run Apple's content business, and that acquiring Jimmy Iovine was a major reason for this. And he also pointed out that Iovine and Steve Jobs were friends and kind of had a shared vision for music. And the reason for that was that Iovine, when the music industry was choking on the growing dominance of the iPod and iTunes in the early days, Iovine was saying all along that Apple is the future of music, and that's the right way to go, and that's the way to monetize music, and so on. So he kind of won over Steve Jobs for that reason. He supported the iPod and iTunes in the very earliest days.
I frankly did not. I'm shocked. I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought it seemed like a very odd marriage. It's the first time Apple's ever bought cool instead of inventing it, and it is the biggest acquisition Apple has ever made. Another piece of news is that the Beats Music iOS app just dropped their yearly pricing of to $99, and now it's a free trial. So in other words, they dropped the paid subscription on Beats. Yeah. So, but is that only on iOS? Let me see if I can get a free Beats subscription on Android here. Yeah, they lowered the price from $119.88 to $99.99. Oh, so it's not free. It's not free. I think there's a freemium version, but then they have a subscription upgrade. So I mean, this was part of the story. Of course, Beats is the newest streaming music service. Beats acquired Mog some months ago, which was a very good streaming service, but they hadn't really gotten much traction, even though AT&T offered it as a family plan for people who bought AT&T phones. $16 for unlimited users on a family plan. I broached that with my children, and they said, "No way, we've got Spotify. we don't want Beats." Interesting. And of course, Beats is on Android. I just don't know if the deal will extend to Android. That would be an interesting move by Apple to say, "Yeah, we're gonna make this cheaper if you're using iOS." Apple's paying for the deal with $2.6 billion in cash and $400 million in stock. That's, the New York Times is confirming that. Right. Well, there you go. I guess we'll continue to cover this tonight on Tech News Tonight, and as time goes by, maybe we'll get some people on who can comment on it. Very interesting. I'm surprised. Once the time passed, I didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen from day one. It just doesn't make sense from my point of view, but obviously it makes sense to Apple. So I have what you said about it on tape. Go ahead, play it. We recorded this because I knew I was wrong. Yeah, here we go. Nope. That's the change law. There we go. It was a rumor created by Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine in an attempt to sell headphones and stock or whatever. This was 17 days ago, Chad. Some interest in a company that is actually failing. All right. Now you've got no need to rub it in. Too far? Yeah. Actually, I asked them to make a recording because I thought, if it really does happen, then you can mock me endlessly. And certainly a different Apple than the one. Gruber did this great post on Daring Fireball about how, like, back in the day, I guess it was like 2000, there was a leak about an ATI Radeon getting included in the new Mac at the time, and that Jobs was so incensed and Apple was so upset that they basically ripped every single mention of it from the keynote at WWDC. Yes. They took it out of the machines. They were punished terribly for just the leak. So when the leak happened and then all that time passed, it was like, maybe this really isn't going to happen. But Leo, you didn't think it was going to happen because you don't think that Apple needs to buy Cool or that Apple wouldn't buy Cool. I don't really understand what the benefit to Apple is. It's not the headphone business. Although the revenue for Beats headphones was $1.3 billion last year. It's not the streaming music business because it's a crappy streaming music business. Nobody would say that Apple couldn't duplicate 110,000 subscriber streaming music business. Easy. In fact, Apple's always eschewed streaming music. They've had this opportunity for years and always turned away from it. So it ain't the headphones, it ain't the music business. It's got to be Jimmy Iovine, Dr. Dre, and whatever brand value Beats has. And I guess it's a very, very successful brand. But I don't know how it enhances. Does it enhance Apple's brand? On Sunday on Twit, they said, you're too old, Leo. You think Apple's cool still, but young people in their 20s and earlier, don't think of Apple as cool. They think of Beats as cool. So this would make them think Apple was cooler because they own Beats. I find that very hard to believe. And I also have to point out that a number of companies have owned Beats and dumped them almost immediately. HP owned Beats and dumped it. HTC owned Beats and dumped it. If it's such a great deal, why did HTC and HP get out of the Beats business? It doesn't make sense to me at all. But they're probably concerned. They were probably concerned about the future of Beats. But being owned by Apple means that Beats has a really bright future. They have, obviously the most successful retail store chain ever.
Apple does, and they'll continue to sell Beats in those stores, but now more tightly associated with Apple. So they own 65% of the high-end headphone market. That's the kind of thing that's the kind of position that Apple likes to be in. And you say, does this make Apple cool? Well, Apple is now Beats. Beats is now Apple. It doesn't make the Apple brand cool. It means Apple is now in possession of the cool Beats brand. So I think that's the next best thing to a halo effect. Financially it doesn't matter because this is pocket change for Apple and it pays for itself in 3 years. And I just think that it's kind of a no-brainer. It's highly profitable. These things are extremely profitable. You can build these headphones for $15 and sell them for $200. So,
yeah,
it's a business-wise, it's a fantastic business.
Jeez,
Well, that's
Apple,
a really good point, Mike.
Here's my problem with it. Apple has never done that. Apple's always, and this is to me, this is a sad day for Apple. Yeah. Apple has always said, we're not building products to be cool. We're not building products for high profit margin. We're trying to build the best products possible. And I don't think anybody can argue that Beats headphones are in any respect a good product. So to me, it's a complete mismatch. And I don't think Jimmy Iovine or Dr. Dre, I mean, it must be for that. And I don't know how much they bring to the table. Surely any deal that Jimmy Iovine negotiated with the music industry is off the table as soon as Apple becomes a part of it. That's a very different deal. Apple dominates the music industry. The music industry hates iTunes at this point because they're terrified of them. Apple's been trying to make content deals with Comcast and other television companies, and there's some supposition that maybe Iovine can walk into those boardrooms and make a deal. I don't think these companies are swayed by personality. I think they're swayed by the business. And if the business doesn't make sense, they're not going to do it, however much they love Jimmy Iovine.
Yeah.
So it remains to be seen. I mean, just because a company buys a company doesn't mean it's a good idea, just to witness Time Warner AOL.
I think I got to believe that there's something to the idea that what they purchased was membership in the tight-knit community of the music business. Iovine and Dr. Dre are now part of Apple, and these folks are these people are inside the music, way insiders, right? So that comes across in two ways. First of all, when it comes to making deals, it's not just the fact that Iovine himself can negotiate deals, but it's the fact that these Apple people are one of us when they go in. This is the perspective by the music business. The other thing is that I believe that Beats Music has some of the dynamics of a social network. And if you look at how Twitter, part of Twitter's secret sauce is that so many celebrities, so many famous people are constantly referencing Twitter. And I think they want to have the celebrity-obsessed music service, streaming music service, and social streaming music service. So
not the Apple I know. This is
not
an Apple that is all about surface, that it's all about appearance. Not the Apple that's all about quality products.
Look how quickly Apple changed when they fired Steve Jobs and when Steve Jobs left initially.
Yeah.
And how quickly they changed when he came back.
Yeah.
This is actually a very, very subtle change, but the Apple that you know is Steve Jobs' Apple. And he's been gone for a few years now, and this is the new Apple.
So just to repeat, the breaking news is Apple has bought Beats for $3 billion. $400 million of its stock options that'll vest over time. Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre will become Apple executives with the deal. They expect it to close pending regulatory approval in the third quarter of this year.